Welcome to North Ogden City Council meeting on this 5th December 2023. We're grateful for all who are here in attendance, both online and in person. Itchy eye. Mayor Berube is not here tonight, and as Mayor Pro Tem will be conducting the meeting. We'll start our meeting with a invocation or a thought and the pledge of allegiance by Council Member Severin.
We'll say our invocation first. Heavenly Father, grateful this night to be able to assemble, grateful that we have the privilege of being able to live in this incredible city, and grateful for the country that we live in with the abundant freedoms that we enjoy. And we pray this night that would bless all of us as we attend tonight. The decisions rendered would be for the best benefit of the citizens and for the future. We pray for the Duzel family. May they know our thoughts and our prayers for them and their recent loss. We give thanks again for our abundance, and we pray that our city will always be a safe place. And we pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Good, just join me. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Severin. Councilmember Severin references indication that a tragic accident last night in our community, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the Duzel family and for their loss, and also for the other individual involved in the accident, because there will be much to deal with there as well. So again, our condolences to the family. We'll start now into our consent agenda. We'll have a call for a conflict of interest disclosure. You've all had an opportunity to see the agenda tonight and look at the packet. Any conflicts of interest to declare? Yes, Councilmember Exton.
Well, again, it's the same issue. I own a business that is in the South Town Center, so I have input, but not necessarily conflict of interest, but I just want to disclose it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We'll now look at approving the minutes for our October 10th, 2023 City Council meeting. Has anyone had an opportunity to look through those? Any changes? Everybody looks to-
Everybody looks to-
Julie's got
looks
the
to
evil
council.
eye.
Okay, I'll look for a motion then to approve those minutes.
So moved.
And a second.
I second that.
All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
I
Any opposed? Unanimous. Now moving to our active agenda and our favorite part of the evening, our public comments. Please remember, it's true, Brenda. We look for forward to the opportunity. I'm getting my timer set here, so that we can be sure to stay within our 5-minute time limit. If you have something that you'd like to say, John, if you'll watch for anybody online, now is your time to approach the just kind of approach right here, I suppose. Tell us your name and whether or not you're a resident of the city.
I have a complaint, but I'm not going to tell you my name. You guys don't have your microphones, so I'm old. I need you to speak up a little bit, especially the ones with their backs to us.
project. Use the time.
That was Brenda Ashdown, North Ogden City resident.
No comments tonight.
Any other comments? John, anybody online with a raised hand?
Nope.
Okay, we shall move on. Our next item number 4, is the canvass of the 2023 general election results. Our presenter will be our city recorder, Ryan Santoro. And we'll turn it over to you, Ryan. Nice and loud for us old folks.
Okay, I have a microphone, so I don't have to project as loudly. Okay, the official general election canvas statistics and summary report has been provided by Weber County. I will present that report at this time. The total number of North Ogden registered voters was 12,413. The total number of ballots cast was 4,756. 50 of those ballots were rejected. 9 ballots were returned past the deadline. 29 signatures did not match voter records. 9 were returned unsigned. 1 empty envelope was returned without a ballot inside. 3 provisional ballots were cast and counted. The North Ogden City Council at large results are as follows. Christina Watson, 2,582 or 18.09%. Ryan Barker, 2,337 or 16.38%. Chris Pulver, 2,294 or 16.07%. Philip D. Swanson, 1,791 or 12.55%. Tim Billings received 1,663 or 11.65%. Merrill Sunderland received 1,266 or 8.87%. And that concludes the 2023 general election canvass and report. Council, do you have any questions for me?
Any questions, council?
I
Okay,
have a lot of questions, but I don't think Brian can answer them.
thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. And we'll just look for a motion to approve that then.
Okay, council, looking for a motion to approve those results.
I move that we accept the canvas for the general election 2023 in North Ogden City.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Sorry, I forgot to give you the order. The order tonight will be Blake, followed by, Councilmember Severing, followed by Councilmember Parker, followed by Councilmember Ekstrom, followed by myself, followed by Councilmember Dalpas. So in that order, Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Parker.
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom,
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson, yes. Councilmember Dalpas.
Yes.
Okay, vote is unanimous. Thank you to all who ran and are now having the opportunity to serve. May the years be as good to you as they've been to us. And I mean that. Okay, we'll move on to our next item then, discussion and or action regarding the use of redevelopment agency or RDA funds. John Call will be our presenter. Council, in light of Emily Call's birthday tonight, and Ryan has a child at home that's sick and needs mom's attention.
Not me.
This Ryan.
Ryan, our
Mom.
We have another Ryan.
When all the real Ryans stand up. Wow, how many Ryans do we have? You're not Ryan, I know you're not. Maybe you are. We're gonna try to be done here by 7:15 to 7:30 so that they get home. Okay, John Call.
Okay. Here's our fancy slideshow.
And I'm told Scott Hess is going to be our scribe on the whiteboard tonight. Is that true, John?
Yes, absolutely. He has better handwriting than I do. So, council, we're talking about the RDA. Now, you won't be taking a vote on this tonight. That will be a vote that happens next week in the actual RDA budget process. So that'll be on the 12th. But just as a quick summary, the RDA was set up in the 1990s. It utilizes what's called tax increment, property tax increment, meaning as the properties increase in value from investment or just natural appreciation, That additional money is divided up between the agencies who otherwise would be entitled to it and the redevelopment agency. The money that the redevelopment agency gets is then injected back into the properties, into the area to create additional investment and benefits to the community. The current estimated budget for the end of the year, and it's an estimate because interest income plays into it, what we actually get from property taxes play into it, but it's estimated to be $3.6,400,000. And the staff and the council have been talking about this for several months. The projects that we are currently focusing on in the conversation, and this is, again, doesn't have to be exclusive, is the aquatic center, which is a rehabilitation of the aquatic center. That's everything from parking lot to boilers, the floor in the main office and concession area, that kind of stuff. The Bicentennial landscape, which is re-landscaping Bicentennial Park, as well as some landscaping along Pleasant View Drive and 300 East, to help with water-wise activities and maintenance there. The 300 East commercial access, this is one of the newer ones we've talked about, which is bringing an access road south of Cafe Rio out to 300 East, so that people who want to go that way to the future light that will be installed at 300 East and 26 or 2700 North, depending on if you're UDOT or the city, making sure that people can get there out of the parking lot. And then the Southtown area, or this one could even be modified to include the entire redevelopment area. The idea being that there could be a focus on partnering with the landowners in the area to inject private dollars with these RDA funds into redeveloping activities. The concept behind this would be, there's two approaches. The one that we've kind of pitched before tonight was, let's find a project that the city would like to do, whether it's daylighting Coldwater Creek or creating like a pocket food truck area, or doing landscaping, or find a project the city likes and injecting money there. Or the other idea is, we could set aside a certain amount of money that's available, let the property owners know in the redevelopment area, hey, this money is available. If you would like to participate with the city and be a partner, come submit an application, and we will help basically maximize their private investments into their properties by injecting a little bit of city or RDA funds as well. And none of these projects have to be dialed into the penny today, or even necessarily next week. Although the better we are with numbers, the better it's going to be, because the report we need to send to the county or to the state auditor. But the idea is that what we would like to do is probably at least have one project. So if there's others that we need to talk about, that it can be a kind of a catch-all. Because if interest rates spiked this month and we ended up with $50,000 more, then we would want to spend it somehow. And so I anticipate that there might be some room for some of these projects to have a little bit of a cushion on, not necessarily in the budget, but have a project that's a cushion project. So if we have extra money, we can spend it. If we don't get enough money, we're not going to undermine a project because we can't finish it because we don't have the money. This is the budget that is proposed for the hearing, which includes, and Scott, do you want to write these on the board with your excellent penmanship?
Good luck.
So the ones we'll talk about are the ones we just went through. The aquatic center would be the $1.71 million. The Bicentennial Park and landscaping is $210,000. The Southtown, it says park project, but I think I think I carried that down. So it's the Southtown project is 1.3 million. And then the 300 East commercial access is 205,000, essentially, with a little bit of rounding. And so that's how we would spend. It would also include the $175,000 transfer to the aquatic center that we had originally planned. And and that's it. And so, and I've got some slides that show these that we can move to because Scott's been given a cheat sheet by Jamie. But so this is the aquatic center area.
Okay.
And this area, as you know, so this is where the fire station is, but the aquatic center is in this, we're gonna call it Utah shaped parcel, has a significant parking lot that needs to be redone, has 2 different pools, a splash pad. Most of us have been there, but not everyone who's gonna watch this maybe has. And it is used heavily all summer long. Colder years, we get a little less people, warmer years, we get a lot of people. But it is definitely used. It has been largely supported since the beginning by the RDA. Some years as little as a couple, $10,000 or $20,000. Other years it has been up to the 150 or more. It kind of depends on gate entries and things like that. But again, some of the things we're talking about is redoing the boilers, redoing the parking lot, redoing the floor in the main building, upgrading the pool covers. The pool covers are 20 years old, for example, and Ken is a master seamster. Is that like a teamster, but a seamster? He has an industrial sewing machine and he repairs the pool cover every fall to get it ready for winter. We actually just, if you haven't seen it, if you drive by, the slide has just been resurfaced with fiberglass and really with resin. But it's those type of things that will essentially hopefully turn the facility into a new facility or new feeling facility. It also would include landscaping around the facility. Not all of it would turn into xeriscape, but most of the stuff outside of the fence would turn into lower water usage, xeriscaping type stuff. Most of the stuff inside the fence would continue to be grass so that people can set blankets out and use that as opposed to picnic tables at their option or on a first come first served basis, as some people love to take the tables because tables are great, right? The Bicentennial Park area, it's also called the Acres Plaza or Lee's Plaza. You've got the McDonald's out on the corner of Washington and 2600 North. But this would be improvements to the landscaping around the plaza, not necessarily the full circumference, but then a real heavy focus on Bicentennial Park, including upgrades to the plaques there that are recognizing the military members who have served and things. And so that's the concept. One of the reasons this is a little bit cheaper than what one might normally expect, even though it is $210,000, is one of the ideas was that much of this work would be done in-house as our employees had time and were preparing for different things. And some of the work even at the aquatic center on the landscaping was thought to be, but there will be a significant portion that will have to farm out. This park also will be getting an irrigation equipment upgrade, so that the sprinkler system will function much better. And it won't function more, it'll work better. But then also, if you've been over here recently, in fact, I drove by there today and there are a zillion ducks and they abuse the grass over there pretty heavily. And so there's some conversations about what's the right thing to do along the water so that the ducks the ducks and the people who were there interacting with the ducks aren't destroying all the grass. I noticed there were pine trees there and I thought, well, if you cut down the pine trees and get rid of those weeds, then you can, I'm kidding. Pine trees, the acid always kills the grass, right? This is the conversation about 300 East and this access out to 300 East, just south of the Cafe Rio building. I'm sure most of you have traversed around Cafe Rio, over past the dumpsters and out just to the south of Northern Ice. This would create a more viable exit from the facility heading west. It likely won't go straight west like this, but we'll do some sort of maneuver to get farther away from this intersection, but still work really well. We have already been talking with the developer on participation in this activity for this piece and have had favorable conversations to this point. I don't know that they have a tenant selected, but they do anticipate starting that development in the near future. And then as the Southtown area, this is the area we've talked about. The plan area that the consultants have been working on for the, not necessarily directly tied to the redevelopment area and agency, but just as we've been working, actually the project limits go up to just north of the cannery and down south of Big O Tire a little bit. And so if we were doing something in this area, it could include more than just this property, although this plaza has been one of the things that has been focused on. As you all know, there is a trail that goes along 1900 right here, or a future trail, I should say, to follow Coldwater Creek as it heads west. And then the last project was kind of what I was talking about earlier, was just a general, we could reach out to all of the commercial landowners or even the residential landowners in the purple and say, look, the city has some money available. So if you are interested in investing in your property, the city has money available. And that one doesn't have a planned budget. It could be tied into the Southtown recommendation. But in theory, that could almost be like a city sponsored grant program. You know, you could set some limits and say, hey, the RDA will inject 10 or 15% of whatever the landowner puts back into the property. One thing that's really important to recognize is all of these purple properties are the ones from where the tax increment has come from. So any property that's in purple here has been paying an increment based on their increased value to the RDA. The residential properties don't pay as much because most of them count as primary dwellings, are paying 55% of the property tax, where the commercial are paying 100% of the property tax to the county, and then the county divides it up as qualified. Most of these areas, to give you so the IHC clinic is right here. The Smith's Marketplace is right here. Lee's is up here. Nilson's Custard is over here. Aquatic Center. Down here, this is a storage and self-storage. This is the Southtown Plaza, the cannery, and then these are the Majestic View townhomes. And then there are some other residential, Black Hawk, Sunbrook, Three Fountains, and some other residential projects in here. So that is the end of my slideshow. And we just now need to get a little bit of direction on for next week, what information you'd like to have for next week for your discussion, or what general direction you're thinking of going, just because we want to be prepared. So, and turn it back over to the group.
Thank you, John. Okay, council, leave it. Councilmember Dalpas.
I like by the way, just so everyone knows, the 300 East little corridor that would go between 300 East and Lee's. That one we recently added because we recently received information that UDOT will be putting an island between Washington Boulevard and approximately 300 East. So we're trying to be preemptive to that one. But just generally my comments are, I like the idea of doing more of a grant type of process. You know, we have a bucket of money that is available to businesses that are, and to John's point, residential areas along Washington that could turn into businesses. But just having a grant bucket that's available on an application basis, basically first come, first serve, I think that would be really good. So I'd encourage us maybe to go in that direction.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes, I agree with Councilmember Dalpas. I think that is a win-win to have the money available. It gets buy-in from it, the investment in, the proposal that was given by the I guess the consulting firm that drew up the whole plans. I mean, as a business owner in that Southtown Plaza, what they were wanting to do with that, or what they proposed to do with that, would be a complete disruption to our whole process. But I do think it needs something just to get the property owners to clean it up. You know, doing something with the parking lot structure, I think would be great, especially since we do have events there. There are car shows, and if we go back to having the 4th of July parade on Washington, that's where a lot of the staging is done after it's done. There's the Shakadup Festival that's done there too. So, you know, it would be really nice to have that for city events. It's a nice open spot, and we need open spots. But I really like this, the city sponsored grants. And then it just, you know, I agree with you too, Councilmember Swanson, that, you know, we don't just go in and clean up somebody else's property. Or I just think that's just a bad idea. I love that this bicentennial park one isn't too high. I think that's awesome. The 300 East one, you know, a lot of it is safety. I look forward to having that done and getting does UDOT, so is the installation of the island gonna coincide with putting a light at 300 East? Is that kind of the whole project that they're gonna do?
More than likely, UDOT will require the developer who's developing the south side of that area to put in the light and the median.
Okay,
So that it'll probably be done at that developer's expense.
all right. So those entrances into the Lee's Plaza are pretty much gonna be entrances only, right?
Right in, right
Or
out.
right in, right out,
Yeah.
excuse me, that's not, yeah, that wasn't correct. So yeah, right in, right out, which we seem to have to do a lot around that whole area. Just this accident on 2600 has me thinking there's nothing worse for business than having people die trying to go to it. Is that something that we can do, or we can use some of these funds to get some more lights, to get some lighted crosswalk signs, something to make it extra safe? I know Mr. Ashdown was talking about crossing, you know, getting his grandkids across to North Ogden Elementary also. And yeah, we just need something that's, you know, people are crossing and to get people to know, to get drivers to notice. And I can't think of anything better than a flashing
So
lights.
the nice thing about the 1990s and the RDA rules at that time is that they were very broad uses. And what it says essentially is the project has to be directly tied to the area. And so if the redevelopment board was saying we are going to make safer pedestrian routes to Washington Boulevard, then that could qualify. That type of stuff, because that now you're creating paths and ways for people to come down. You know, we've often talked about, and Scott is a big advocate for the multimodal transport routes, the idea that people can walk, bike, scooter, you know, do whatever they can to get down to an area where they could shop or, you know, pick up dinner without having to use their car.
Okay, so at the meeting we were at, JD, where they were talking about those things, maybe that's a combined effort. We had lots of ideas of paths to take, but you know, there's only, you know, we're gonna get some amount of money, but if it can be combined, it would be really lovely to encourage, you know, biking and walking, that as long as it can be safe, it's really, you know, we want people to be able to get to where they need to go, not have to get the car out. And so anyway, those are just some other ideas that I came up with, but I like the safe routes and the grants. And that's
Okay.
it.
Councilmember Barker, Councilmember Severin. Thoughts? Anything to share at the moment?
Yes, thank you. So on these grants, for example, how much money, John, I go back to the very first slide you had, but you just on the allocation of money. So on the RDA, if we were to make available this idea of general projects, how much money is there any allocation there?
Well, so if a good example is that the redevelopment agency, which is you 5+1, the board could say, well, you know, we don't want to do the Southtown project. So we're going to take that 1.3 million and move it to the grants. in the thought that it could still apply to properties in the Southtown area, but it isn't just exclusively for that. Or you could say, well, we would like to take a little bit from Bicentennial, a little bit from Aquatic Center, and a little bit from Southtown and build a different pot. So it's totally up to the group on how you would like to do it. I would recommend that we not take money out of Bicentennial Park or the 300 East connection, because those two are projects that are small enough that if you chip away, they might not be able to be successful.
So my first response is, we take care of what we have, right? So obviously, in my vote, Aquatic Center becomes the priority. Bicentennial Park has really been in need of a facelift for years. Sounds like the 300 East commercial is kind of non-negotiable. So I guess in my sequence, if I were to put a number up there, I would go Aquatic Center 1, Bicentennial 2, 300 East commercial. And then I would kind of combine Southtown and RDA general projects into kind of a fourth
I had a similar thought
category.
that I just jotted down. I was thinking, we leave the Aquatic Center for 1.7 million. We leave Bicentennial Park at the 200,000, 210,000. So, that puts us at 1.9. 300 East, we increased that to 300,000 because we don't want to shortchange that. That is such a busy commercial piece for North Ogden, really Smith's Marketplace and that Lee's Market area. So we're at 2.2 million there. And then if we threw in, say, 300,000 for safety, the safe routes to put some lights in, maybe where they're needed, some additional flashing crosswalk, if we can get people to use them. I sat at one of our flashing crosswalks today and watched 6 groups in a row cross the crosswalk without activating the lights. And I'm thinking, why didn't you spend the money for the lights? And this was as the sun was setting and visibility isn't great. And I'm thinking, why are we not using the lights? But whether it's adding in some sidewalk, whatever, for this multimodal idea that Scott has taught us about. So 300,000 for that. We're looking at a total pool of $3.6 million. So that totals 2.5. That would leave 1.1, 1.2-ish that we could use in that general grant pool for the rest of the RDA. And that way, as you mentioned, council member, that we're taking care of the key components, 300 East, Bicentennial Park, the Aquatic Center, the safe routes. And then we have this general projects at 1.1, and that really kind of, in my mind, opens it up. And that's what I just jotted down a moment ago to think about. What other thoughts do you have, council? Councilmember Barker?
I'm struggling with the grant idea here. I'm trying to think about it, only because I sat in this meeting with the Southtown, and I don't want to quote any property owner because I might get it wrong. They did not seem happy or want our RDA funds. That was the impression I got. There were a couple that said they didn't want to touch them because then that means they were being held to what the city standards were. So if we're getting, I'm not saying we don't do the grants, but if we do the grants, is there a time frame? Because what if the money doesn't get spent? What if we don't get the grant applications? So then what do we do with the money? It's just sitting there waiting in perpetuity, or are we waiting? Is there like a 2-year time frame and then it'll go somewhere else?
I think that would be part of what we would have to, we being council.
And I hope I
have to do.
hope I was wrong, but I didn't get a positive vibes from business owners. In
That
meeting.
was the vibe I got after. the meeting.
And then I also agree with you on the safe routes. Sorry. There's a big development in our neighboring city where multiple people have been hit crossing Washington, so they put up a light and they don't use it.
Right.
People, unfortunately, people don't use crosswalks. They cross where it's convenient for them to cross. So we can do it and I'm okay with it, but is it gonna be the best use of our money? And John's raising his hand now, so.
John, throw something at me, would
So
you?
one of my dad's favorite stories is where he went to college. You know, he was there he did law school there too. So he was there for 7-8 years. And the presidents of the college changed every 2 years or so, and they'd get up and say, walk where the sidewalks are, walk where the sidewalks are. And then the last president that was there got up and said, put sidewalks where people are walking. And that might be an analysis, if that's a focus on safety, is let's look at where people want to cross and enhance those to make them safer, as opposed to trying to say, this is the spot. The trouble is, Washington, UDOT says this is the spot.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
hard part.
And 2700 north too, so again,
Yeah.
where this spot is.
I was just gonna have a story just like that, John, because I was listening to this very, very funny radio program where they were talking about deer crossing. Did you hear that? Have you listened to that?
The
It's
call-in,
hilarious. The
the
call in.
crossing,
yeah.
This is like, why are they having the deer cross there?
Yeah.
It was hilarious. So it's like, yeah, where are people crossing? I mean, we've had 2 accidents there crossing 2600. And, you know, it's like, if that's where they're crossing, you know, on Wall Avenue, there's one that goes actually over the whole,
Those are so expensive.
they're very expensive. So it's like, but, you know, how much is somebody's life worth if they'll use it, if they'll, you know,
But they gotta push the button
Be
too to
serious.
turn them on.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, hopefully, you know, maybe we create something that it just brings awareness to it and say, look, this is, you know, people put their flowers up, whatever. Anyway, it's like, look, this is serious. You know, people are gonna get hit here if you don't let your presence be known. And then, you know, Ryan, to your point, you know, the grant thing, that's like any grant, right? It's like, this money is available. What I didn't like, and what I think a lot of the owners in Southtown didn't like, it was the plan that they had. Because it was redesigning the whole thing. And so I think that was the resistance you were feeling, but I think something like this, where it's like, you know, at least the owner that bought the building that we're in, you know, would like to do more and has started to do some, but they are a little stretched, you know, their budget's stretched too. And so I think something like this might actually, you know, just you know, the win-win situation. I hope we can get, because it's the old Macy's building that looks the worst, but, you know, I don't know if the Katrubis brothers still own that? And they are
Well-
notoriously difficult to work with.
Well, and this is part of the reason that the consultants were selected, is to come in and hopefully get those people some buy-in. That was kind of the point of the meeting, was come up, put your ideas on the board, and they can tweak it. And again, this is what part of this money could be used for, is inject it to the owners that are willing to participate, to improve in a way that we can get it on a path to being a vibrant, more used for events or whatever type of place. And that's what we asked the consultants to help us do, is to basically pitch something to the owners.
Right. I think it was a little too extreme, was what it came across to me. It was like, wow, they are just redoing all of this, you know, and I went home and talked to my husband about, it's like, well, it would be fun to have this food truck thing. It's like, so we want to invite competition?
We-
So that we don't talk about everything all night long, because we do want
We
to.
do wanna
get
go
out
on.
there. Yeah. Let's see where we agree to begin with. So I think we all agree on the aquatic center,
Yep.
right? So, Scott, will you put a check mark next to the aquatic center? I think we all agree on Bicentennial Park, is that correct? Okay, and I think we all agree on the 300 East Commercial.
Yes.
Okay, so
I agree with the 300,000.
the 300,000. Okay, so Scott, if you'll change that 205 to, anyone have an issue with that being changed from 205 to 300?
Is that gonna be, is that enough? Is that, I don't know.
It might not be, but we would have the other, if we agree on the grant program or whatever,
Got some wiggle room.
we've still got, you know, more than $1 million that more funds could come out of if we chose to do that, if council chose to do that.
Well, didn't John mention that the developer was also willing to assist on that?
Yeah, the developer will be participating. They'll want an access, a better access off of 300 East for their own. So they,
So,
and
they're
to be-
financially gonna contribute.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be clear, anything that involves a business owner, right, is going to require participation on their part. This, even the grant program, you see, Scott has written down there 10 to 15% match. What I would propose is that council comes up with a match number that says, if you put $1 million in, we will go up to $150,000 in participation. So that just like we did with Lee's and with Nielsen's and with the strip mall right here and with Ace Hardware, with Smith's Marketplace, with all the others that we've helped over the many years, the majority of the financing and project is funded by the business owner. And the city came in as a minority stake, right, and said, okay, we're gonna help you to the tune of 10 or 15% to help make this pencil because it's good for the city in the long run. We aren't going to be the major financer. We aren't going to be the sole driver. And I think it'll be important for that to be spelled out in whatever council decides next week. So we're good with the Aquatic Center. We're good with Bicentennial Park. We're good with 300 East at 300K, right? Okay, so that gives us 2.21 million out of 3.6. So we have an additional 1.4 million then that we need to talk about with regards to, and just what's on the board there, RDA general projects, Southtown area, and safe routes. What are your thoughts about those three? Let's start with RDA general projects. What are your thoughts? Councilmember Barker, I know that you don't favor that completely.
This is duplicated in the math right now.
What's that?
One of these is duplicated, I think, in the math right now. So we're actually, this would be, one of these would be like minus 300. Okay. There were only so many projects in there so far.
Thanks, God. My firefighter math is off.
Well,
think we're like
if we're at 3.6 and the Aquatic, Bicentennial, and 300 East, those three come to 2.2, right?
there's a little bit of money for the transfer to the Aquatic Center, 175,
Oh, okay.
and
So that
some
would be-
like $500 for administrative fees. So it's clecer to 1.2.
Well, yeah, so closer to 1.2 than we have to talk
Between
about.
these two ideas right now, right?
So we have about 1.2 million that we need to program. Yes.
So on the grant idea, if there's not a lot of participation within the first year, we could we could basically open up more in the second year and more in the third. So 10 to 15% contribution in the first year, I think a lot of businesses will start to bite on that, honestly. But if they are not drawn down, we can have it written up where the second year, the city participates 25% because not enough, or you know what I mean? So it kind of is a way to make sure that it is spent and well used. Or the other idea is, if we don't want to do that, we could just say the remainder of all funds that are left over that aren't used by 2.5 years in will be used for sidewalk infrastructure or something. So we know that it will be well spent and used in.
My only concern with writing in the beginning is the second year, we would,
Well, yeah.
we would increase the participation rate. If I were a business, I'd wait till the second year.
Right.
I mean, if you're gonna give me 25% in year two and only 15% in year one, I'm not gonna apply in year one. I'm waiting until.
Well, then
year
strike
two.
my idea. Let's take that.
Well, so-
We don't tell
I
people.
think there's
that
a
are
way
going
it can
to.
be written.
Yeah.
When we announce the program, we can make it very clear that we can say, so the good way that WFRC does it, and they say is the recommended contribution is this.
Okay.
And so we could say, we recommend, to be competitive, put that you're putting in 90% of the project. But if you want to ask for 50-50 and you think there's a valid reason why, then pitch it, and then the RDA board can still say yes or no.
And there may be that project that comes along that
As extra.
we can't foresee that goes, we say, the RDA board says, holy smokes, that would be great, a real tax generator here in the city.
Yeah.
But we need to participate more than 15% and the money's there and the board decides.
Yeah.
With all the new board members decides, yeah, that would be a great expenditure of the money. I like that idea.
And I would anticipate that the city itself would put in a good example of project. We've talked with UDOT about a path on Washington Boulevard. UDOT's pretty excited about widening like the east side to 10 feet. At least that was their initial reaction. And so we might apply to them to bring in a project and then apply to the RDA to do the city's match of that project.
Oh,
So it wouldn't be, I mean, it is the landowner, UDOT's putting in the 90%, we're putting in the 10, but anyways, I would anticipate that the city might do its own application saying, hey, we think this is a valid project, you know, because Scott has a ton of experience with multimodal, things like that. And I just think that there's a real chance that I'd anticipate that depending on how much time we give, I think we'd see a lot of landowners apply for this money, and we might spend the 1.2 within, or commit it within the next 6 months if that's our time frame.
council, how would you feel if on the safe routes piece, and we have 1.2 million basically in the general projects and the safe routes piece? How would you feel if we leave that at the 1.2 with a recommendation that there be safe route projects in that, and as they come forward, the board can decide this is a good project. It will help access to businesses, people do it safely if they'll use it. But all of that can be done. We're not committing a specific amount, but we're also not saying we're not going to look at it at all. What do you think about that?
Okay, so
Councilmember Exton?
yes, thank you. When we went to the meeting about these safe routes, there were quite a few of them that we did. And so if we can get participation from the city, I think, because they have money and they wanted to do these. I mean, they're not gonna do all of them, but I think if we can prioritize which ones we think are gonna be, just be walked. Where are people walking? Where's the grass being worn down? Where are they going? Let's get that prioritized first. And so if we can, take that money, match it, let's see how many we can do. Scott, is that something is that a conversation that you have with WFRC about, okay, we want to do as many of these as we can, we've got this money, what can you do? And then we can choose them and then we can get rolling on some of these. I really would like to see that.
Remember, it has to be within the RDA area.
Mhm.
It
Well,
can't be just anywhere in the city.
Well-
It has to be in the RDA area.
And that's what we were actually drawing the routes to, was to get to those places. Kind of pedestrian and bicycle paths from residential areas, getting them to where they can spend money. So to me, it ties right in, and especially to do it safely and to, get people out of their cars. So, I mean, to me, safety is like number one priority. I like the general projects just for improvement on aesthetics, but safety comes before aesthetics to me. So I would probably prioritize the safe routes and then, see what we can get done there. And then, whatever money we have left over, those go to grants to business owners and property owners.
The project area list might just look like RDA general projects, and then the safe routes and grants, and then you nest under it the ideas that you might have. So that could be facade improvements, it could be signage upgrades, landscaping upgrades, other things just in the general area that if you had a landowner come in and say, we want to invest $1 million in our building, will you help us get over the finish line with some facade betterments? So I think those are all things that nest under it. It's helpful to have the council's direction on what you might prioritize there, but you'll have 2.5 years of people coming in to make application, of the city making application back to the RDA and asking for projects.
Yeah, and I think just approaching again, the Southtown property owners just like, look, we just want to make it look better. You know, I think they're been more open to that, and especially where they have some input in it, and then we're not gonna try and redesign the whole thing. But just come and say, hey, we need some better landscaping here, we want some signage that looks good, we want lights that are better. We want to put some safe routes over here, these are some suggestions, what are you know, what are your ideas and what do you wanna do? But, just to get the buy-in, that, you know, they're invested in it too, so. I think,
Council, your thoughts?
Yeah.
So what we just kind of summarizing, then we would have the RDA general project, Scott, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Roughly 1.2 million, and in that would be the safe routes. So we'd have the aquatic center, Bicentennial Park, 300 East. We'd have the RDA general projects, and in as a section of the, 4.1 and 4.2. Then we would have the safe routes. Not necessarily a specific amount type of the safe routes, but knowing that, is that more comfortable to you, council?
May I ask just a question?
Absolutely.
So on the safe routes, Scott has written down Washington 2600, so I just get so nervous about thinking about trying to, can we really do something on Washington
Not without UDOT's approval.
that's really gonna be, I mean, nothing is gonna be, you know, nothing's gonna be foolproof, right?
Right.
But what would we do to be able to get people to cross, to be able to go over to Southtown from the west side of Washington, you know? You've got down there on the wall, you've got that one just before you hit like the, oh, what is it? It's kind of, you just hit the car dealers and things like that. You've got that big,
Yeah.
you know, being down there a little bit more frequently, like I have been, seems to be well used, but I can't imagine that would be cheap. Putting that kind of, well, I guess we have the one just by Walmart, right?
Yeah.
So that one.
That's only been in, what, a year now, maybe, year and a half? The one by Walmart, the red light flashing, the traffic break, yeah.
I guess in my mind, I'm just thinking, yeah, did I hear you say probably over $1 million just to put something like that?
There's several $1 million to do an overhead project, and then you're typically doing acquisition on each side, 'cause they have to be ADA accessible.
Right.
So they're either elevators or they're like big.
No, not a walkway, the flashing red lights.
The flashing beacons are about $200,000 per location.
So the one at Walmart would be about $200,000.
$200,000. Yep.
Because I'm just thinking in my mind, I would not even want to approach putting something across Washington that wasn't, again, nothing can be foolproof.
Yeah.
But
Staff did warn, well, I guess not warn, but we let UDOT know our desire, 1900 south and, or 1900 north and 2000 north, both having some form of pedestrian improvement in a crossing. So 1900 not being at the stoplight right now, they pushed back a little bit. It is one block and it is a crosswalk. And anytime you've got two curb cuts right there at a roadway, that is legally a crosswalk. So if we showed the youth that users would be there to utilize it, we could probably get some improvements there. And then 2600 comes along the project area, at least along City Hall block. And then Washington goes up to 2650. So that's Pleasant View Drive across 2650, where we have a hawk type of beacon right now, but we don't have the full blown overhead aerial, like the multi-Christmas tree lights. So there's some improvements that we could make there that would pull a bunch of, you know, like double duty of safe routes to school, just a safer pedestrian crossing, a prioritized east-west route across Washington that connects to the trail and parks. So there's a few of those other areas that we could look at too.
And I think if we program the money this way, we're meeting the requirements, would we not, John,
Yes.
for the state? And then the future RDA board could have this discussion in detail as proposed pedestrian access across 2600 across Washington. That discussion can be had at that time in detail, and the board can then decide, is this or is this not a worthwhile project for the RDA monies that have been set aside? Yes.
Councilman Swanton, I would favor this approach.
Okay.
I'm just adding my.
Staff has one more question.
Yes.
Is there a 4.3? You had mentioned, come to us with your best projects. So should there be a, like, all other eligible RDA projects? Basically?
I think that would be in the number 4, the
Is
RDA
that just-
general projects.
And I was thinking like, this is the title of the bucket, and then these are like things that drop into it. So I would probably just, I would write it down.
If that makes sense in your mind, that would be great.
So what we have to decide this year is. or,
If
you know,
what, say that again?
What we have to decide now is.
What we have to
is the
decide now
allocation,
is
correct? It doesn't have
basically
to be
what we have
spent.
here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that correct, John?
So
That
this
would
is
mean
the,
what we need to do, just a head nod. There isn't a,
the programming for it, right?
next week is the actual vote. So let's just take a straw, because we're not really voting on this tonight, correct, John?
Right, yeah.
So let's just take a straw poll here. Councilmember Barker's good. Councilmember Severing, you're good. I'm good. Councilmember Ekstrom,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Dowpass. Okay, I'm good with it. So we've got 5 nods. I say we move forward with this and prep it for next week for final discussion. Council come prepared to mull over this over the next week. Come prepared next week to have an actual roll call vote where we lock this in. And John will work on the language for recommendations, recommended participation rates, things like that, where we're not locked in, but we make it kind of clear that we're not just going to finance everything that wants to be done.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
And this direction, I'm not sure might help even with the consultants to say, hey, now that you've got your feedback, here's some from the council, help us, because they might even be able to help us understand what's a great way to word this to get participation that could really impact the area.
And with some of the owners in Southtown, that attended that meeting and that talked to us since, this may be a better approach where they can come in and really, as they should, take the lead and say, this is what I'd like to do with my building. This is how much it's going to cost. How much is the city willing to participate? Here's the return on investment to the city, not in actual dollars, but in, increased sales tax, increased traffic, all that kind of good stuff. Where I really like this. Thank you, council. I think you've done a great job.
And
Yes, Councilman Bell.
a good example where this would be a good approach for Southtown is, when I spoke with Dave Meets, he was talking about, hey, I've had all kinds of issues with the island on Washington, just, the sprinklers are just ancient and I can't keep them going, and I've had utilities come in over the years that keep messing things up. And he'd like to do potentially some xeriscaping along there. And so that would be a perfect thing for him to come in and apply for the owners association for that plaza, however you want to do it. But have them apply for it and have us approve it if we go. It's good.
Okay, great. Council, any comments? Any other comments before we move on? Okay, we'll move on into item number 6, which is, we're back to public comments. So 5 minutes is your time limit.
I'm intimidated.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Anybody? Is there anybody that would like to speak? Mr. Burns,
Kevin Burns from North Ogden.
speak loud so the old people can hear you.
Job pretty well done, considering as much kicking around as you've done with this thing. Pretty well done.
Thank you.
So, that's all.
Well, that was 5 seconds worth, so you got another 452.
I'm
if you
good.
like. Okay,
Can I just stand here?
Sure.
yes.
Brenda Ashdown, I live in North Ogden. I have a couple questions. It's not specifically on this, but it kind of is. In Southtown, I know we're concerned about the look of the buildings and the parking lot. For my house, I have code enforcement that, if I park a trailer, I have to have it on cement or whatever. Is there code enforcement for this area? Who takes care of the parking lot? When it gets to a certain level, does the city go into the owners and say, you got to do something with this parking lot? The same with the buildings. If the buildings get to where they're looking so poorly, Like, I don't know if you've been in that laundromat lately, it is horrendous. Is there not something that the city can go in and say, you've got to upgrade this, or you've got to close down the business? That's my question.
That's a great question, and I don't know that there is code, Brenda, that forces either a homeowner or a business to have their building, other than, there's safety codes, obviously, that the fire marshal and that our inspectors would look for, but as long as those safety codes are being met, how it looks is really up to the owner.
But at some point, can't the city or fire, whoever, go in and condemn a home?
If there are safety violations, yes, and the same is true for businesses that,
Okay, I'll take you to the laundromat and show you the safety violations.
I would have you reach out to our city manager and he will note those and see that they are looked at, right, city manager?
Inside, if it's an inside safety thing, it might actually fall under the health department, but we can talk about what they are and go from there.
John can help you make sure you're going in the right direction.
My question actually was just, is there not some way that the city can require them?
There is, but we're limited.
Okay,
There is,
thank you.
but we're limited. And as John mentioned, some of that may fall under fire, it may fall under OSHA, it might fall under health code. Agencies that the city is not, and we don't have that authority, but those agencies would.
Thank you.
We encourage government limits.
What's that?
We encourage government limits.
Do you?
I hate that.
We want to be all powerful. Other comments from public?
Christina Watson, North
Nice and loud for the old people.
Christina Watson, North Ogden. A couple of thoughts I had. The daylighting the creek, the consultant study with daylighting the creek and the food trucks. The consultants were looking out for the benefit of the whole city. And I just don't know if a business owner or a landowner would ever suggest or file an application for that specific item. So, I mean, maybe we don't care that the consultant study's been wasted, or maybe there's parts of it that we want to look at. But I wonder if there could be an RDA project that the city applies for, that's looking out for the whole city and not necessarily directly impacting. Is the grants for business owners or landowners, or both?
It would be for the land and building owners, not the businesses.
Not the business.
They're just tenants.
And then I also wondered on the grants if there was a way that you could have some businesses combine forces and put an application in all together, like the Southtown, if that union wanted to all together fix their sidewalks or their parking lot, if they could combine forces and not just one name person, but they could combine. And if that were possible, it would be hard if it were a first come, first served timeline, because if they have to get together and have that meeting, I just wonder if there's a time where you could say, okay, the grants are opening in 1 week, bring your applications at this time. So they have time to collaborate. And then I also was wondering, I like the idea of first come, first serve because it encourages motivation, but just for a second, I wonder if you think outside the box for a second and say, what if the other option, if the city were to rank them or rate them or just look at the applications itself instead of first come, first serve, maybe you put a short amount of time on it, then maybe I just want to highlight that the point of RDA is to increase sales tax and boost economy. So if it were maybe not the first week application, but third week application, but it really boosts the economy more than this first one that came in, you know, you might want to look at that option too, because I think we really need to, and I'm not against safety, but I really think that we need to highlight the focus and the purpose of RDA money, because boosting the economy is essential, just like safety is essential. And I just wonder if safety maybe could fit in the general budget somewhere, but boosting the economy would never fit in our annual budget or fiscal budget. Do you see what I'm saying? So maybe there's this group, I'm almost done, this group that helps with the safe routes, that invests money in that. I wonder if they would invest without the RDA money, like maybe our annual budget could help that group and match without the RDA. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. John, Christina brings up a good question. Can individual businesses who don't own either the land or the building come to the RDA with a project?
It just has to be invested in the area or to a project that benefits the area. So
But they would in theory have to have permission from the building or landowner to do any improvements, correct?
So in theory, it could be used for tenant improvements. So a tenant of a building
Okay.
that would have control of that could do it. Yeah.
Okay, great question, Christina. Other comments?
Can I speak to, so Christina, there, for instance, the frontage on Washington
Let's
is.
get through all the comments and then.
Okay,
No,
well,
you
I
go
just
ahead.
want,
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to just
Go
to
ahead.
describe to her about, because there are different there's somebody that owns the building the pizza man's in, and somebody that owns the standard plumbing. And there are sections that go out to the front that they own part of it. So that's just kind of to your point. If you want to get everything in front done, then you've got to get Pizza Pie Cafe and the owner of operator. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, trying to get them to agree, but even just letting them know, and even, if we get one application, just brainstorming with you, because you're gonna be one deciding this too. To then say, hey, we've got this one, let the other owners know that this is something that's, already in the works, they're gonna get this section done. But yeah, I like your idea, and the safety thing is like, really, it's to get people safely to.
Yeah.
To spend.
Great.
So,
Yeah, I see it.
Okay,
Yeah, I
cool.
see it.
Thank you.
Other public? Hey, John, anybody online?
I have one question, and that's how.
Go ahead and come on up.
Yeah.
Gotta speak loud. Tell us your name and what
Hello,
city you live in.
everybody. It's Shaw.
And what city do you live in?
I live in North Ogden, and I'm right
Wonderful.
behind the South Town. But my question was, is how many people read and finished the survey? I just kind of wondered.
I think the survey's still open.
As of a week ago, Scott updated me that 357 people had taken the survey.
Which is pretty
And
low.
I'm sure since then, have you heard recently? So it closes on the 11th. So I would estimate that we're hopefully at least upwards of 500 respondents by then.
Okay,
Which for a
so,
survey is a great turnout.
so another question, or I already talked to somebody about this, getting the survey, and some of the people don't even know about the South Town area into the Connections magazine.
Mhm.
I wondered if you meant the deadline.
We didn't for the December magazine. So
But we're working on it for January.
Yep.
Okay, so it'll be in the January magazine.
I used to work for the Standard deadlines.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, they are. They are. I get nervous around reporters. And you two will soon. Sorry about my evil laughter.
we do have one online.
Okay, go ahead.
We've got, Susan Kilborn.
Hi, North Ogden, Susan Kilborn, North Ogden city resident, blah, 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 blah. 2 questions. First of all, I know I filled out the survey online about South Plaza. Was there anything put out to the general public? Because I know I found it through Facebook, and not everybody's on Facebook. So that's my first question. Has anything gone out to the general populace for their views?
It's Facebook and the website. We haven't emailed, or we haven't mailed everyone just because of the cost that would come from that.
Okay, so what you're saying is it was on the North Ogden city official website?
Yes.
It's on the banner.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Now, my second question is talking about the allocation of the RDA funds. Let's say a franchise business like Olive Garden or Red Lobster, or heaven forbid, something really high end where my handsome husband and I can go and sit down, have a drink, dress up, celebrate our anniversary locally. Wanted to come into our area And could we make some kind of deal with them? Like if they put down a certain percentage, the city would put down a certain percentage, or is that not viable?
Susan, we did that with Smith's Marketplace. When they came in, as they did their what's called a pro forma, to see whether or not things make sense to them financially to come in, they were just a hair short of what their algorithm says they need to be. And so the RDA stepped in and helped out with I believe it was the sewer main line, wasn't it, John?
No, it's actually the demolition of the old.
It was the demolition of the old line, but it was $200,000 or $300,000 worth of contribution to make possible millions of dollars of contribution by Smith's Marketplace. And of course, the tax boon that they've been to the city since they've been here. So yes, I think the answer to your question is yes. In that kind of a circumstance, the city would consider participation if they were in the RDA area and if the finances made sense.
Okay. So you've kind of given me, dangled a worm on the hook for me to maybe get in touch with some general managers of these corporations and see if North Ogden fits their bill. Normally these companies have a demographic that they want to follow. And I'd be happy to do that. Wink, wink, wink. I'm pretty persuasive.
We'll turn you loose, Susan.
Okay.
Okay, fine. You guys don't know what to say. I
Oh,
understand.
I say we turn you loose.
We're turning you loose.
Love
Go
it.
get them,
Get
Susan.
you
Turn me loose. Oh, you don't want to get me to sing.
on.
And Blake, I'm so glad you showed up tonight. I almost forgot what you looked like.
There's not much to remember here, Susan.
Oh, yes, there is. I don't know.
Long hair like Phil.
You're gonna be around for another couple of years, right?
Well, I'm hoping that's a positive thing.
I don't know. You may be my new hair guy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Look at Phil. He's like, God, I'm glad I'm leaving. Okay, you guys.
Thank you, Susan.
Yep. Goodbye.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Bruce Christensen, I'm a resident of North Ogden as well, and I'm not very superfluous on, I'm not very orative on a spur of the moment, but from what I've seen here and the work that you did, I echo the words that impressed me. And then I have a couple of comments, and this is the superfluous part. Bureaucracies grow. Very often they make decisions that irritate some of the population that they are over. But the superfluous statement is sometimes we spend money to find out that we really don't want to go down that path, and that's okay. It's not okay to throw good money after bad money.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else online, John?
Nope, just the one.
Okay, we'll move on then to item number 7. And we have just a few minutes here to get our mom and dad home to their kiddos and to the mayor, council, staff comments. Let's start with staff. Scott, anything from you? Jamie, anything from you?
Dave snuck out.
Brian, anything from you? Okay. Nate, anything from you?
No.
Okay. John, anything from you?
No, just a reminder, next Wednesday. Be there or be square.
Brian, fearless city recorder.
I have nothing today. Thank you.
Nothing. Okay, let's go to council then. Councilmember Severin, anything you'd like to bring up?
Not tonight.
Councilmember Parker.
Just real quick, since Brenda, you brought it up. This, my job as a fire marshal, I can't go into any business I want to. If I've been asked to leave, I have to leave. There's still, I gotta go get a consent warrant to go into some businesses. And that may or may not have happened in that area we're talking about. So Just because we wanna fix them doesn't mean we can't.
Due process.
Yep.
Constitution.
Yep.
Councilmember Dow, anything else, Councilmember?
No,
Okay, no mosquito stuff or anything?
they're pretty much dead right now.
Dormant, right?
Our mosquito district's doing a great job killing mosquitoes right now.
Thanks for that report. Councilmember Topaz.
Nope.
Councilmember Extra. And I don't have anything, with that, be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.